Hello, my name is Ross Everett. I'm going to be doing a demonstration video today of some watercolor paintings. It's from a series I've been doing on mycology imagery, so images of fungi and mushrooms. First of all, I just want to thank the Laramie Public Art Coalition for allowing me to make this video and for allowing me to be a part of this Art Up Close series. Really excited about being a part of this wonderful town I love. As you can see, it's a pretty amazingly beautiful spring day, kind of avoiding the snow that's been happening haphazardly. I'm going to do this as a time-lapse video, so you don't have to literally watch paint dry. But if you would, please work alongside of me. You can pause at any points to let your own paint dry. And it'd be really cool to see kind of what you guys come up with. Yeah, aside from that, I think we can go ahead and just get started.
These are the watercolor paints that I use, the Winsor & Newton Cotman series. I just use these because they're fairly inexpensive. I think they have a good level of vibrancy. I usually dry them out and then kind of add water to the dry paint and pull from that. But you can also paint just from the wet paint mixed with water. These are the main colors that I really use for these mycology paintings, so I thought I'd just go ahead and list those for you. This is the watercolor paper I'm using for the demo video, but I'm not very particular about my watercolor paper. I really just like it hot pressed because I like the smooth texture. My drawing materials will be a 2H pencil for really thin, light pencil lines, that .05 pen for the lighter ink lines, and then the Uniball Vision pen for thicker lines. You can also use brush pens, things like that. If you do use a pen, just make sure it is waterproof ink, because otherwise the watercolor will make it bleed. These are my brushes. I don't use all of these each time I paint, but it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a variety. I would say that these three are probably the ones I use the most and the ones that I'll be using most in this video. I think a round brush is one of the most necessary ones to use. This is probably my favorite brush I own. And it's nice to have a liner brush, because you can get lines that are a little bit more like a pen or pencil would be. I'm going to show you a couple of watercolor techniques before we get into the mycology images. So first of all, just kind of wetting the entire paper. We're going to do a color gradient. I'm going to do yellow to orange. So just starting off on one end with a line of yellow pigment, and then on the other end we'll do orange. The center will kind of bow up on the page. You can use that shape to kind of let the pigments run to the edges if you like, but also if you want to kind of control it a little bit more, you can wet the back of the page or even tape it down. But I usually do several of these kind of alongside my watercolor paintings. I usually work on 4 or 5 watercolor paintings at a time, and then I'll let them dry and kind of use them either as toned paper or something like that to kind of build up on top of. My second technique is going to be creating a shape with a water bubble and then adding pigment to it. With this, you can add more water or more pigment in different areas to kind of control where it's going to be darker or lighter, and you can move around the page to do that as well. You can prop it up on something if you like, and you can kind of pull that water bubble out to create a wider shape and add pigment at the edges to create kind of a color gradient, maybe using some more water to push it out at the edges. Jumping right in here, as you can see, I have 6 pages that I'm going to be working on. I like to do that just because it helps take the stress and pressure off of making each individual one perfect. Watercolor seems to be one of those materials where the more stressed out you are about making mistakes, the more likely you are to make them. So you kind of have to find a level of detachment with these as you're working on them, not trying to get anything exact or anything perfect, and letting them fail. If they fail, they fail kind of mentality. as I work on these, I kind of like to take this as an opportunity and a practice of mindfulness. So I like to kind of contemplate where the paper came from, where the cotton was grown, where some of these pigments come out of the ground as minerals, all of that kind of stuff. I think for me, what the beautiful thing about this mycology imagery is the fact that mushrooms kind of take the trauma of the environment, all of those dead leaves, all the dead sticks, fallen trees, anything like that, all the garbage around them, and they take it and they turn it into something beautiful, something positive, and something good. Everybody has trauma in their lives, and you kind of have a choice to either let that stuff rot inside of you or to do something about it, make it into something beautiful. Seems to be something so elemental about watercoloring, using the 4 elements. You have water, of course, the earth and the pigments come out of the ground. You have the light reflecting off of the pigments to create the colors, and the evaporation from the heat that carries the water up into the air. It seems very kind of visceral and almost primal to do these watercolor paintings for me, and really kind of letting myself embrace that, letting myself really let go and use kind of a different part of my brain than maybe I'm usually thinking through. As we kind of come to the middle of this, you can see some of these are going a little bit better than some of the other ones, at least in my opinion. That one with the tiny mushrooms that are growing on the little twig came together really quickly. But some of these other ones, I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with them. Just kind of using this opportunity to play around. This one here, I'm overlaying that indigo over the orange, using those complementary colors to kind of see which ones come forward and which ones recede, and just kind of using this as an opportunity to learn something about the paper, something about the pigment, and the way that the paper holds the pigment. Sometimes when I'm not happy with how some of these are going, I'll just kind of set them aside and let them completely dry before working anything back on top of them. That's what I did with this one. I wasn't really happy with how it was looking, but then once I kind of let the colors set, I was able to come back in. As you can see, I made a little mistake there. You can take a little piece of tissue or paper towel and actually remove watercolor where you don't want it. I try not to do that, honestly, because I kind of like where those mistakes go a lot of times. A lot of times it creates something more interesting than if I had done it on purpose. You can also use paper towels and tissue to make really interesting textural effects, just by kind of dabbing the watercolor. So maybe try that out too. Maybe kind of using it as almost a stamp. You can kind of make a little shape with it. I don't like to do that very much, but it does create some pretty interesting stuff. As we're nearing the end here, just kind of thinking back to those mycology concepts, thinking about the biological alchemy that takes place with these fungi, and how they turn that trauma, that rot, into something better, something beautiful, something completely necessary. I think in this time of pandemic, it's helpful to think about these things, not trying to be toxically optimistic. I don't think this is a good situation to be in. I don't think it's for the best. But I think it's good to recognize that it's a natural process to take things that are gross, take things that are nasty, rotting, and to turn them into something beautiful. It's a natural process for the environment, and it's a natural process for humans. Thank you so much for watching my video. Hopefully you created something alongside me. I would love to see those. Also, I just want to thank the Laramie Public Art Coalition one more time for letting me be a part of this Art Up Close series. And thank you again for watching.